Welcome to GCA Unmuted, the podcast where we share the stories and strategies that show how Georgia Cyber Academy makes online learning work. In a virtual school, families aren't just part of the journey, they're essential partners. Building trust, communication, and collaboration with parents is what helps students thrive in an online learning environment. I'm joined today by Shannon Ready, one of GCA's Family Engagement Liaisons, who works closely with families to build strong partnerships, support communication, and ensure parents feel confident and connected. We'll explore how family engagement works in a virtual school, how trust is built over time, and why strong partnerships with parents are foundational to student success. So, Shannon, I appreciate you coming on. Can you lead off with a moment or an experience that you think really captures what partnering with parents looks like at GCA?
Um, I don't really have like a one specific moment, but we do have, a strong start period in the beginning of the school year, mostly heavily in August and September. And that is like the family engagement team biggest collaboration with parents. And it's vital, it's important. There's not a time during those months where an FEL isn't trying their best to help parents, help students get into learn the platforms, get into class, get into testing, learn the ropes here. And I really think that's the initial part of what really takes off between GCA family engagement team and partnering with the parents.
That's awesome. I love that you mentioned Strong Start. So, can you actually explain a little bit what Strong Start
Sure.
is
Yeah.
and like why you think that's the pivotal thing. That's the thing that really captures the partnering with parents.
Yeah. So Strong Start is like an onboarding process that the family engagement team does. And it takes place right after like a parent's application has been approved and they're into the system and stuff like that. So what happens is they get assigned like an FEL and the FEL rolls through the onboarding process, such as walking them to class. Um, and that's like a virtual session to help the parents realize how to move through the platforms.
Mm,
There's other things like there's virtual connections to teach them about all the other platforms like Nucleus, Attendance, um, Clever, like just even though we are not academic, we're helping them get into the platform and navigate it. Because when parents come into GCA, especially ones that have never been in a virtual setting, they're coming from a traditional brick and mortar. They're so overwhelmed, they're confused, and then they're frustrated and nervous.
mm,
So I really think the main part of Strong Start is when we partner with those parents and students, sometimes, especially high school students, to navigate all the different platforms that GCA exposes to the students and families.
mm.
So,
And
oh,
y-
go ahead.
no, 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 go ahead.
I was going to say it's when they we start in this Strong Start process. Um, it takes a couple of weeks and it's included in like other areas, other departments, right? Like we're doing pre-testing. There's certain FELs that do pre-admissions testing to make sure that the students get a schedule. So we are working with the parents to make sure that, they get into the testing, to get into the Canvas, to get into testing. So even though we have this area where we're not really academic, we we collaborate and partner with the parents during Strong Start to make sure that they are successful when they're handed off and they start classes with the teachers and so on and so forth.
No, that's great. Sounds like a super helpful program, especially for, like you said, families that have no experience in
Oh yeah.
virtual school. Is Strong Start something that families only do when they initially come on GCA, or is Strong Start a module that every family does every year at the beginning of the year?
We well, so like we kind of when school starts in like August, we have like our returning families and then we have new families. So that initial part of Strong Start goes towards the new families, like onboarding. But we definitely have a separate kind of Strong Start, if you will, for the returning families to help them refresh. Because there's many times that, new things come out in Canvas that they didn't know about or that we didn't know about, and then we have to tell them.
Mm,
So we do have like a separate thing. It's not as extensive as with new families, obviously. But we want to make sure that, the returning families are just as successful as the new families. So they do
mm,
go through a strong start. It's just not as elaborate as the first time when they get enrolled into GCA.
mm. And have you found that families or parents, particularly new parents, learning coaches that come through, are initially nervous, but do you kind of see them kind of get the hang of it or learn the ropes through Strong Start? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, that's actually like one of my favorite parts is, you have this parent that'll come in and they're super nervous, because really the main goal of anybody that's working in education is the success of the student, right? Whether it's a parent, whether it's an FEL, whether it's a teacher, we're here for the child, the student, to make sure that they're successful. And I as a parent. And I'm sure, there's tons of parents here at GCA in different positions, but as a parent, you can sympathize with that. So when they come in and they're panicking and they don't know what to do,
Mm,
and the FELs kind of hold their hand and walk them through the process and you know basically calm them down, if you will, to
mhm,
make sure that it's going to be okay. I'm here. Well, I'm here for you. This is what we do. Call me, email me, come into my virtual class session. But this it's going to be okay. It's going to, and I like to give my parents like an upfront message saying, "Hey, this is gonna you're gonna take about 2 weeks to get the hang of it, but
mm,
after that, you're golden." And then when they call you or you call them, you talk to them right after they get over that hump. That's like the best feeling because you know that you helped them and now they're on a track to be more, you know, successful and the student is more successful at GCA.
mm. So you said it's about like 2 weeks process a little bit is once they kind of start feeling like they're getting their sea legs a little bit with Strong
Yeah.
Start. Okay.
Yeah. I say about 2 weeks on average. Parents start to get the hang of it, 2 weeks from their start date. So they go through the processes and learning things and going through the courses and learning how to do the ropes. But once they get like their schedule and they're going into Canvas and they're going into class and finding the assignments and just navigating the platforms, uh, after about 2 weeks, they've calmed down. They're pretty like, okay, yes, I got this. I can do it.
Mm,
And then, when you talk to them and they're not panicking anymore, they're like, yeah,
hmm.
no, actually, it's going really good. It's like, oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome. So, when you think about your role, Shannon, as a family engagement liaison, you're a part of the bigger family engagement team. What what is what does that all involve? So we heard about Strong Start and obviously the support that you're doing in the beginning of the school year with new families, but obviously you're not assigned just new families, right? You have returning families, I would
Mhm.
imagine. You have new families. So you navigate Strong Start, but what are some other things that just throughout the year you really see your role being and involving and responsibilities and duties that you have to families in this virtual school setting?
It's actually really funny because we kind of have our hands everywhere, in different departments. Um, and our main thing with parents is that we want to make sure that we know that BLs know all the information so that we can help them. We're not teachers, so we can't teach them or talk about grades or assignments and things like that, but we can direct them to Canvas to say, hey, you might want to look at Johnny's social studies class. At his grade book, he's missing some assignments.
Hmm.
Or, we can talk about how he's missing 3 days of school. So we kind of talk about attendance there, like, hey, if you get a couple more absences, you're going to get notices about truancy, so on and so forth. Around, I guess it's coming up soon, February, March, we start with like a re-registration process.
Hmm.
So we actually, the FELs will help process applications actually to get the returning families re-registered for the next school year.
Hmm.
So during that time, we're talking to families about, hey, let's log into your Parent Infinite Campus so we can complete the application so you guys can get onboarded for next school year.
Hmm.
Um, and then, of course, everybody does milestones and such like that, but we make sure that the family is in a situation where they can travel to milestones. That's really important too. Some of the, I know that we all have like site coordinators and stuff like that, but the FELs are talking to these families every month, sometimes twice a month, multiple times a month. So we know if something's going on where they're probably not going to make it to testing or their address has changed. And so we kind of work in that area when testing starts coming up, making sure that they know what tests they're going to take. They know where their site location is. Um, so we do a bunch of stuff during that time period as well.
Mm. Wow. So you kind of, like you said, y'all are a little spread out all over the place with your big initiatives, though, being obviously supporting these families throughout the year, but
Hmm.
your big initiatives with Strong Start, re-registration, testing milestones. Um, just as a point of clarification, do you have students assigned individually and multiple family engagement liaisons could be assigned to one family? Or do you have, if a family, let's say, has three students, would you be responsible for all three students across those grade bands? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. So like an FEL will get a family, and whether they have one student enrolled in GCA or three students, will have that particular family. So that way the parent's not going to different FELs for each student. We have one unit, one collaboration, one FEL to help. It's too confusing if you have too many FELs going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so the FELs usually our caseloads are about 160, 150 students. And they could be like, single students or multiple students in a household that we kind of manage throughout the year.
Sure, that you're supporting and responsible for.
Yeah.
Sh- Shannon, what do you think are like some common misconceptions that parents have about online schooling, and how do you address them when they come in?
Uh, Actually, I think the most common misconception that I hear is that we're a homeschool, number one, and we're not really a homeschool, even though it is at home. I get it.
Hmm.
So that's something that I think I know I have as an FEL talked to parents about, the difference of homeschooling and stuff like that. And another thing is that, I really try, even in the beginning in Strong Start, to tell them, we're a school, even though we're virtual, we're the same thing as if you went to a brick and mortar school. So, are you expected to your students expected to come to class every day on camera? It's the same thing as if you walk in that classroom door. So I do
Mm.
think that sometimes they get that confused. Well, we're a homeschool, or like we have this pace yourself, or you don't really have to attend classes, it's optional. I find that to be the most common thing that I had to talk to families about and explain, because they just don't really grasp that. I think they just think that, and maybe that's, the time period of COVID's fault, I'm not sure, but they just
Mm.
think that when they come in here, it's a, uh, you know, kind of a pace yourself learning environment. And so that's a challenge when you have that conversation, and you talk to the parents and you explain that, and they're like, "Oh, that's not what I thought it was." Um, but at the same time, it's like, hey, but don't panic. It's the same thing as just sending your student to school, except you're here on the computer instead.
hmm Did those conversations ever morph into them being able to earn flexibility though? Like is that a conversation that you have as
Yes.
FELs with your families? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I do. Because really, I mean, I mean, I'm sure there is, and I just don't know about it. But what other school really, like if you basically get encouraged attendance or flexible attendance, I'm not sure other schools actually do that. I don't know that. But uh, I do have that conversation with parents because it is such a talking point and reward, especially for when you get those families that are like, my student's gifted, my student is advanced. So they already know the information. They can just go in and do all the work.
hmm
Um, so it is a challenge at first because I think for the first semester of new students, you have to attend classes as required. But really, I just tell them like this is your grace period to show us how smart you are, how good you are at coming to class, how good you are at turning your work in at a time,
hmm
how good you are at retaining the information and being prompt and
hmm
participating in classes. So once you do exactly what you're saying that you can do, then your reward is that you do get flexible attendance, and then you can kind of go from there with a more flexible school day or work day or whatever it is that the student needs to do.
Sure, if they've showed that they are proficient in the
Oh yeah.
material and they can do it on their own, then absolutely, then they've shown that they don't exactly need the same support as other students. How do you even navigate when those difficult conversations happen, whether it is regarding the I want flexibility versus, whether it's like, hey, grades are slipping. How do you kind of navigate those conversations while also still being partners, still having some trust, still maintaining the relationship?
And in each difficult conversation is different. But the most important thing that a family engagement liaison does is we have this heart, this empathy. So when a parent calls or we have to call them and have a conversation like that, it's important that we are, clear with our communication. We we show them empathy. We try to reach solutions. We're not defensive. We're not trying to put any blame on anybody or anything like that. We listen. We ask questions so that we can get to what actually is the root of the problem, whether it's attendance, grades, whatever the case may be. Um, and a lot of the time, like if a parent calls into an FEL and they're just having an issue with grades, a lot of their that conversation is fueled by their fear, their frustration with the situation. No parent wants their child to fail. No parent wants them to be withdrawn for truancy. So they have this reaction, and it's important that FELs, and I feel like most of the FELs do this. They listen and they try to like de-escalate the situation, and the tone from the parent, and just kind of approach it from that perspective as a parent. Like, hey, listen, I know that you don't want Johnny to get withdrawn for truancy, and you want him to pass to the seventh grade. So let's see what we can do. Let's see who we can talk to. Let's see how we can get him into a session so that he can get extra help on his math and turn it in, whether it's late or not. So it's important that when we have those conversations, we let the parent talk, we let him get it out, and then say, okay, let's calm down and see what we can do.
Hmm. hmm. And what systems or strategies did do y'all have in place as the family engagement team to make sure that communication is consistent, and that because you mentioned your caseload could be 150, 160 students. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a lot. And within that, you have a number of families. And so across the school, you're having to make conversations. You don't just have one a year. you're having them all throughout the year. So it's like, what system strategies is your team using or you using to make sure that you have consistent communication across the board that you're touching and supporting these families throughout the school year?
Well, we get like a weekly kind of update data report for each student, right? So we can see in like a list view, like, oh, this student, even though they might come in a household of three different siblings at GCA, we have one student who has straight A's and no attendance issues. We have another one that is failing three classes and has three absences and missing tons of work. So when we look at those reports and kind of navigate that way, so we can see like, oh, this student that grades are good, attendance is good, all that business, they're a green student, right? Like we might call them, they got their processes going, they got their routines going. We can respect that. We're going to call them once a month, and instead we're kind of shift our focus over here to the one that looks like he might need a little bit more help with, whether it's getting to class, whether it's turning in missing work, whether it's uh, walking them through Canvas to navigate to see how to check the grade book, how to look in the modules, whatever the case may be. So that might be where we're talking to the parents or the student multiple times a month to make sure that they get back on track. So we do kind of really value those that data that comes in once a week to see where those students are at academically or attendance wise or just and there's many times where you'll see a green student and then all of a sudden they're not green anymore. They're failing a couple classes. So, as a FEL and being, I mean, I've been here almost 10 years now. So, like something must be going on. Something's going on with the student, something going on in the household. And that's your initial reaction as an FEO. So you might want to call that family more that month. Sorry,
Mhm.
to check in with them and see what's happening at home to
Mm.
cause this.
No, that's smart. That's a great point too. The support's more targeted, right? So you use the data to decide, okay, we might need to have more communication here and less
Mhm.
there. What do you think, Shannon, then other schools could learn, whether they're traditional, whether they're virtual, from how GCA approaches family engagement? What could these other schools learn, or what advice would you have for other schools, virtual or traditional, about like, hey, this is what GCA's, this is how our approach to family engagement works, and this is great.
Um, I think the idea of well, like families are essential partners to the staff, whether it be GCA, any other school. We're partners because our main focus is for the student to succeed. So when we reach out to parents, we want to make sure that we're talking to them to get the best possible situation, the best possible solution to their academic success. So I think like even in a traditional brick and mortar school, I know that I've seen more schools come up with like a family engagement single person liaison. So I would definitely think that those people would want to obviously there's hundreds to thousands of students in a traditional brick and mortar school for one family liaison, but in those situations you definitely want to make sure that you get the same kind of data. You're looking at that too. You're looking to see like, oh, we have this student here who was making straight A's and now they are not. So make your rounds, go through the different classrooms or different grade levels wherever you're at. And those traditional schools kind of approach family engagement as something that is like an essential partner to the students' success.
Hmm. And what do you think makes GCA's approach to partnering with parents unique, or what do you think makes it stand out?
I think that because we're virtual, we take communication to the next level. Like I don't, I mean, I had a student here at GCA, so even though I worked here, I still got all the parent emails and the parent calls and all that stuff. But at the same time, like I would rather have that than not know anything.
Hmm.
Um, and there's things that you can do to limit the notifications or so on and so forth. But the communication that this school has to parents um, is something that I think that we definitely excel in.
Mm.
There's nothing that we don't send out in an email or in class or something like that happens that the parents weren't told about.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
so
there's
even though
there's
it
no
could,
surprises.
no, no, and I have I do have a daughter at a brick and mortar here in town, and I can tell you right now, there's probably about maybe 5 emails I get a semester from
Mm.
from different things that happen. So I mean, that's like an hour at GCA. So so
Right.
even though it can be overwhelming with the communication that we have, I definitely think that's the best part of GCA. And the thing is it can be communication in anything, right? It's an attendance notification. It's something from our family partnership people that want to tell you about events that are coming up. It's virtual field trips, or it could be anything that we're sending to the parents so that they know all their options. And I don't know another school, virtual or traditional, that has communication like we have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there are any and is that what you would say? Like, are there practices or systems in place that, you know, that other schools you think, or like things that we're doing that other schools could do? Like, for example, like Strong Start. Like, are there things or systems in place, that we do that other schools could do that you think that could help like strengthen like trust and partnership with families?
Um, I definitely think like a strong start. Even though it might be shaped a little bit differently because you're in like a traditional
Hmm.
brick and mortar school. But like, sometimes I think even at the beginning of this school year, the first day, the first week of my daughter's school, she was like, they just went into it, right? They start talking about algebra right away. And it's like, now listen, I can appreciate that, but at the same time, like let's talk about the expectations. Let's show you what I expect from you in the classroom. Um, and that's kind of like the strong start for a traditional school, right? Because we don't need to help them navigate through platforms at a traditional school.
Hmm.
But you do need to make sure that they are informed,
Hmm.
and that's basically what we're doing in Strong Start, right? Is we are informing parents, hey, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. I'm here for you. These are the other people that are here for you. Um, so the more information that you can tell a parent that is really beneficial to the student's academic success, that's the way to go. Because again, like we're partners. Nobody in education is like, man, I do not want that student to succeed.
Hmm.
So we're all on the same side. So if that is, and I know those words are probably spoken in any school, but if it has also to be shown, like, hey, parents, why don't you come in the first for like a volunteer, or if you want to come in one day this week and see how we operate in class. Um, I know there's probably lots of safety concerns nowadays in traditional schools like that, but anything like that, or I also think like we have a ton of field trips throughout the course of every month. So, and I don't know any field trips that happen as you get especially older in high school and stuff like that. Um,
Hmm.
so I think that's a something that should happen still. it is beneficial for both the student and families, and invite the families to come. Like, hey, we're taking a field trip to, there's a couple of different places up here, but one of them was like a hiking field trip. And it's like, who doesn't want to do that?
Oh
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like you're going to the like this creek and you're walking around like the botanical gardens. Like invite your brothers and sisters and your grandparents to walk, you know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
definitely think that again, GCA excels with the amount of field trips and connections um, here as part of not part of a traditional school.
Sure. And I imagine that that's helpful and builds connection if FELs are out at a field trip and they see one of the
Hmm.
families. I'm sure that makes a huge difference.
It
What would you,
does.
what would you say to a parent? Like, what would you say to a parent if they're unsure, if they're on the fence about virtual school and thinking like, you know what, I'm not sure if this is going to be the right fit for my child. What would you say to that parent?
I mean, I've had that situation a couple of times, and I basically encourage them to try it. Like, you know what? You're probably right. You know best what's best for your child, your situation, and it might not work out. But let's try it first and see what happens.
Mm,
I'll take the time to train you in all the systems. I'll walk you through it. I'll make sure you know everything so that part is, covered. But I always encourage them to try it first. I mean,
mm,
unless they have some like really personal situation, but because there's no harm in that, right? We can try it. And if it doesn't work out, we can definitely do a withdrawal and get the student enrolled in a different school that's best for them. But let's see how this works for your student first.
mm,
So I always encourage them to stay and try it, and
mm,
that not in a pushy way or anything like that. Like no, stay at GCA,
mm,
but try it because there's so many times that the unknown or the nervousness of starting this kind of program and the overwhelmingness at first of it is like, no, 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 this isn't going to work. And I want them to get over that hump and then look at it and evaluate it first. And then, if a month down the road you're like, no, no, really, it's not working, then I mean, I'm here for you. I'll respect anything that you want to do that's best for the student. If you want to withdraw, you want to withdraw. But let's get to that point first. Let's actively work through this month and see how it goes.
mm. I imagine that's assuring too, because what you're kind of communicating is these parents aren't alone in the process.
Hmm.
So like y'all are supporting you're with them, and they're not locked in to some contract. Like
Right.
they can if it's not working, they can withdraw, as you said. Shannon, leave us with this last question here. What is the biggest lesson or just a lesson that you've learned? After you said you've been in FEL for 10 years, something
Hmm.
like that. So it's like you've been doing this a long time. But what's like a lesson or that you've walked away or biggest lesson you've learned about like supporting families being along the way in virtual school?
Um, never, never assume you think you know what is happening with a parent or a student or a situation at home. You never want to assume like, oh, they're fine. Oh, they're not fine. Um, you want to uh, make sure that you, as an FEL, take responsibility and call that parent and do have that difficult conversation, whether it be about, hey, what's happening at home, or hey, something happened and I have to make a swarm referral. So
Mm,
I never I always try to put myself in their shoes.
mm,
Because again, I'm a parent, so I wouldn't want no judgment to come upon me if something was happening in my life and my son wasn't going to school, right?
mm,
So I have to look at that in every situation, even though it could be blaringly obvious that this student is just ditching class and he's got straight Fs. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because that could be where you just need to have a couple conversations with that student, and maybe he doesn't have any. encouragement at home. Maybe
mm,
he's feeling a certain way, not just he's lazy and doesn't want to come to class.
mm,
So you always want to approach a family, a student, a parent, a situation with with open eyes and take it. Now, you're listening to a parent and you can clearly see that something else is happening. That's a different story. But
mm,
I never approach it like that at first. I always want to make sure that you listen, because that's what I feel is the most important thing that you can do to build a relationship with the parents and student.
That's a great reminder, making sure you don't make assumptions, and especially
Hmm.
this will help you not like cloud your judgment, and also to be able to maintain the relationship and support the family. That's so good. So here's today's big idea. When schools listen, communicate clearly, and partner intentionally with families, trust grows and students succeed. Thanks again to Shannon Ready for joining us and sharing her perspective. If this episode gave you new insight into family partnership, be sure to subscribe and join us next time on GCA Unmuted Voices of Virtual Education. Thanks, Shannon.
No problem.